This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you to their store and they'll know I sent you there. Hello everyone, I'm Nitsa Hone, and it is Friday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. This is the series where I rank Magic cards based on how well they have performed at Magic's highest level of competition. This time around, I'm looking at auras with Enchant Land. Last week, I looked at auras with Enchant Creature, and a lot of people expressed interest in seeing Enchant Land looked at as well, so here we are. Enchant Land auras, like Enchant Creature auras, can either enhance or weaken the permanents they are placed on. There are actually only 82 auras with Enchant Land in the whole game, and in this video we're going to look at the 10 that have made the biggest impact on competitive Magic. Before we get to the list, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. Pro Tour and Mythic Championship top 8s, as well as Legacy and Vintage Championship top 8s are worth 2 points, and a Grand Prix top 8 is worth 1 point. Now let's get to number 10. At number 10 I have Animal Boneyard, an aura that gives your lands the ability to sacrifice creatures to gain you life. It was utilized in life gain decks and extended between 2004 and 2005. These decks relied on Daru's Spiritualist and Task Force, combined with effects that let you target creatures over and over again for free, like Shaman and Core, and then the plan was to sacrifice that high toughness creature to a number of different cards in the deck that allowed you to gain life equal to their toughness, with Animal Boneyard being one of those ways. You could use this to gain some insane amount of life, like a billion, then you just play a waiting game until you can find your test of endurance to win the game. Animal Boneyard hasn't been played anywhere since 2005, and it doesn't seem super likely that will change anytime soon, but it was once part of one of Magic's wackier combo decks, and that's pretty cool. At number 9, it's Debtor's Pulpit, an aura that lets you turn your lands into a free-to-activate Icy Manipulator. This is a pretty powerful effect to add to a land, as it can let the controller of the land really stall out the game, while also making it easier for that player to attack. Debtor's Pulpit was played in the sideboard of control decks in both block and standard. Its main purpose there was to deal with the format's best control deck win condition, Aetherling. Sure, Aetherling could keep on dodging the actual effect, but it still negated an opposing Aetherling, and that was pretty important in control mirrors. At number 8, it's Genji of the Realm. This is a pretty wacky card. It makes a land have the ability to transform into an 8/12 Trampler. It is part of a cycle of Genjus from Kamigawa, all of which have the ability to turn a land into a creature land. The mana cost here is no joke, but the deck that played it in Standard never intended on actually casting it the normal way. Instead, these decks were built around Enduring Ideal. The deck's plan was to get to casting the epic spell, at which point they could start pulling powerful enchantments out of the deck. While Form of the Dragon was the most common win condition, some versions of the deck also ran the Genju, which could speed up the opponent's clock even more quickly than Form of the Dragon, depending on the board state. At number 7, it's Gift of Paradise, which is also the newest card to make the list. One of the most common types of auras with Enchant Land are the green ones that help you accelerate and fix your mana by making a land capable of adding additional mana of any color, and that's what we have with Gift of Paradise. Sometimes that type of card can be dangerous to play, since if you tap out for something like this on turn 3 and don't add to the board at all, aggro players are going to have you pretty low on life the next time you untap. But Gift of Paradise helps you out a little bit there by gaining you some extra life. It was most infamously used in the combo ramp deck that utilized both Wilderness Reclamation and Nexus of Fate to essentially lock the opponent out of the game. Using the Reclamation to untap your lands, including the enchanted ones that produced extra mana, made it way too easy to cast Nexus of Fate early on in the game. These Turbo Fog decks had a pretty good showing in Standard, and Gift of Paradise went along for the ride. At number 6, it's Abundant Growth. While this green Enchant Land aura doesn't add to the mana you produce, it does fix mana for you while also replacing itself, all for 1 mana. You're always going to get value out of this, since at worst, it does replace itself. It was used in Bant and Jund decks while it was in Standard, and it helped both of them improve their mana base considerably. It also had a little bit of extra value in Bant Hexproof decks, which ran some other enchantment payoffs. In those decks, it could make your ethereal armor better, while also helping you make your mana base better. At number 5, it's Squirrel Nest, which, very flavorfully, makes one of your lands spit out squirrel tokens. In Standard, the Nest was particularly effective when combined with Opposition. In these so-called Squirrel Opposition decks, your plan was to get both eponymous enchantments into play. Squirrel Nest would make sure you were always staying ahead of your opponent in creatures, and once you had enough of them, you could use those squirrels, plus Opposition, to lock your opponent out of the game, at which point you could also use your Squirrel Army to kill your opponent. At number 4, it's Annex, which is actually one of my favorite cards ever. It lets you steal an opponent's land. When I first got into playing Magic somewhat competitively, I loved playing land destruction decks. Yeah, I was that guy. And back in 2005 and 2006, there was a standard deck called Eminent Domain, a land destruction deck that also ran Annex, which was the primary reason for the name of the deck. That deck never managed success at Magic's highest level, but Annex was played in other decks. In particular, it was a sideboard card in Tron decks in Standard in 2006. Tron was such a big part of the metagame at the time that the Tron player who deconstructed the opposing player's Tron was often who won the game in the mirror. Annex doesn't have any points since 2006, but I'm holding out hope that an Eminent Domain type deck could have a shot in Modern. And number 3, it's Chained to the Rocks. This is a white card that transforms one of your mountains into a prison for one of your opponent's creatures. It's a really cool design, even independent of flavor, but when you add the Greek flavor in, it's even cooler, with this card referencing the story of Prometheus, a titan who gave the gift of fire to man when he wasn't supposed to, and he was punished for this by being chained to a mountain for all eternity while birds picked at him. Then, of course, it is also a powerful card. 1 mana to exile an opposing creature without any real downside is pretty impressive. It does have a significant setup cost. You can really only play this in a red-white deck, but if your deck can support it, this is great. It is especially attractive for more aggressive decks who want to be able to quickly and efficiently get any roadblocks out of the way so they can kill the opponent quickly. Its most frequent home in Standard was Boros Aggro, but it was also played in Mardu and Naya mid-range decks. It has never found a home anywhere else, but the efficiency it offers is hard to overlook and may lead to it picking up some points in Pioneer going forward. At number 2, it's Spreading Seas, which can turn a land into an island. The big idea here is to put Spreading Seas on an opponent's land, which now only has the island type and all it can do is tap for blue mana. This can be used to nerf powerful non-basic lands, or it can be used to take away one of the colors of mana your opponent really needs. The fact it has a cantrip built in is great and means that the worst case scenario for this card is at least you're cycling it. In Standard, it was played in control decks, where it was a great answer to all of the powerful creature lands that were played in that format. It has been played in Modern, too, where it is especially good against Tron decks. It has also been utilized by Merfolk decks there, who, thanks to a lot of cards with Island Walk, can get some additional value out of turning a land into an island. Spreading Seas saw play in extended Merfolk decks for the same reason. It hasn't been played anywhere since 2018, but Merfolk are always on the fringe of Modern, so we probably shouldn't count it out just yet. And at number 1, it's Underworld Connections, which basically turns one of your lands into Phyrexian Arena. 3 mana for a repeatable source of additional cards is pretty powerful, and is the kind of thing that can just win you the game by attrition over your opponent. That made it a great card for Jund decks while it was in Standard. It also saw play in Black Devotion decks, where the 2 black mana in the casting cost brought all kinds of additional value, and the same was true in black decks built around the Constellation mechanic. It got additional value in that case from being an enchantment. Underworld Connections has never seen play since it rotated out of Standard, and most other formats have better black card-drawing engines, but Underworld Connections has number 1 on this list by a lot, since it was so widely played while it was in Standard. Well, that does it for this MTG Top 10. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you have an idea for a future MTG Top 10, let me know in the comments. If you want to make sure you catch future editions of MTG Top 10, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.